Okay. All right. This meeting is going to be recorded, and by continuing to be in this meeting, you're consenting to be recorded. So welcome again, Alex, for our Module 4 webinar. And this is the last and the final webinar for course data 445. I don't know, keep saying 220 because that's the other course that I take, and I took the last time, just the last semester. Anyway, so I'm going to skip this slide because just the two of us, we can, just take it easy and, in any point in time, jump in, Alex, with your questions. There's absolutely, we don't need any advocates here. It's just the two of us. And I'm sure the folks that are going to be watching this recording, they'll get the advantage of any questions that you may ask. So feel free to do so at any point in time, okay? So
all right.
Today's agenda will do big data analytics, and I'm going to do a little different today. There's not going to be a lot of slides, but there's going to be some amount of screen sharing that I'll be doing today. So I'll be kind of going out of the slides here and bringing up my screen here, and we'll go over a couple of things that I want to kind of do as part of our discussion today on big data analytics. Next, we'll of course talk about our assignment 4. I don't know why instead of 4, I kind of keep saying 2. But anyway, now we are at assignment 4, and I want to be sure because this is your last week and you should be working on assignment 4 now. And of course, any questions that you may have. Okay. All right. So with that, the weeks 6 and 7 retrospective, you and your classmates did an excellent job with assignment 3. I would still like to know your thoughts on this assignment. I know we had that little step that, I shouldn't say little, but yeah, there was a nice step there of notebook creation that we could not really, complete or do anything about it at this point, even though the issue has been logged with AWS for quite some time. So I'm really looking for them to kind of come back with it. But besides that, any feedback on that, Alex, on how the instructions have been given out into you and from AWS? Is that really helping? Is there any opportunities for improvement in how we kind of presenting the assignments? Are they kind of all making sense?
I mean, it made perfect sense to me. You had the screenshots. You had even from the instructions alone, without the screenshots, I think it would have been easy to figure out. And
okay.
It really is a bit unfortunate that we couldn't do the Jupyter notebook, because up until AWS EMR, it was essentially just assignment 2 repeated or assignment 1 repeated.
Right. You're right. Absolutely. And I was thinking the same. Yes, except for you're building an EMR that using the Spark platform, which would have been nice to kind of take advantage of that and kind of go to that next step. And seeing the code is pretty simple. There was not much I kind of put in the code because the whole idea was not to really work on PySpark code or look at the features of PySpark and all the features, but basically just to know that we can run EMR. And it is actually as simple as the steps that you would have just seen there in that assignment. It's pretty much the, just having to kind of link it with the cluster and running your code on that cluster, which has all the data that is linked to the data lake or to S3, right? So that was really, it would have really completed the whole sequence there. But I don't know what changes they made to lab role. And but anyway, I'll kind of show you, and you'll see very soon, I'm going to be doing screen sharing, where I'll show you that, even after the course ends and you want to work on this, maybe if the academy is still I think you have until the end of the year, this academy kind of a connectivity. But even besides that, if you have your own AWS account, you can pretty much do the same thing. And I'll show you, instead of using the lab role, actually you can have the power of having your own roles created, right? Or let AWS create it for you at different steps. So you get that power, which you don't have in the academy. Okay. So then the issue, so this is what we were just talking about. It's still pending resolution. The submission had to be cut short in the interest of time. And we'll look at some. I will try to demonstrate, although I wanted to demonstrate it completely, thinking that AWS would have come back to us by now and kind of given us some. But unfortunately, we can just take a look at the PySpark code, and kind of, at least I had the initial portions that I had kind of executed. I wish I would have executed the entire. I did at once, and then I had cleaned up all the output there when we were ready to put it in the classroom. So that whole output section got wiped out from the copy of the notebook that I had locally as well. But we'll go with the notebook. So your discussion postings this time really hit the nail on its head. I mean, you had the required depth and quality, and great job on the discussions. Like except for one that did not submit, I think the rest of the submissions were really good. I think you guys got engaged with each other. Of course, as I always say, sooner the better, so that you get into engage with your classmates early. And this is the last webinar for the current course, but I strongly recommend that you take advantage of any of these kind of webinars that you may have for your future courses. And if this is that you're finding it helpful, then you may want to kind of take advantage of those webinars. Or maybe, if the professor instructor is not doing something similar, maybe you want to kind of say, because I'm not sure how many. There are some that I know do this kind of live, touch points and webinars. And if you really like the type of instructions that you got throughout this course, maybe you can, share it with the other instructors, or maybe say, hey, this is something you would love to kind of have, and maybe that the instructor will definitely set it up for you. Okay. So as far as the course retrospective, I tried to get some feedback. I did not get any. So I'm just trying to understand, so was the reading material used in the course enhanced your learning and gave you enough information to complete your discussions and quizzes, tutorials, and assignments? Did they were really help you throughout?
Personally, I felt in general they did. The contents, especially the first couple of weeks, the readings and articles that you pointed us to, I felt kind of really drove the point home when talking about the foundations. What I felt like a little bit later on was some of the tutorials were a bit strange, because it was a couple of them were hard to follow, and the one that comes to mind I think is the week 5 tutorial. I forget exactly. I think Google it was using. I think so, yeah.
Okay.
But not the one we had to do for an assignment. It was a different one, an optional tutorial. Those are a little bit hard to follow, and some of them I felt like didn't connect to course material that we either learned in that week or later. So that was a bit strange. But I think other than that, I really had no complaints about the reading.
Okay, excellent. I'll take a look at that week 5 tutorial for sure.
I'll have to double check and make sure that was the one.
Okay, if you could double check and let me know, I would love to kind of look into that and see if there could be any changes that we can make. But I love the feedback. Appreciate it, Alex. So yeah, this was the Google Colab tutorial. Was it really worth the time, and was valuable experience gained from it? I know we went from AWS to kind of using Google Colab because the whole idea was to try and run PySpark code as easily as you can on Google Colab, than using a bunch of setting up an EMR and stuff. So was that helpful, like the Google Colab? What do you think? Was it worth the time?
Yeah, I thought the Google Colabs, the ones you sent us, some of the code is written, others were kind of instructions to kind of help fill it out. I felt those were helpful. Those were definitely helpful.
Okay.
The one I just found it here on the website was the Apache Spark PySpark tutorial. It was just a video, like 15 minutes. And there was a couple like that were just kind of like video follow-alongs I felt were kind of difficult to grasp, and it seemed it didn't. Yeah,
I see. Oh, so these were not the real tutorials for you to do it.
Yeah, the real tutorials were great.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, all right. So yeah, I misunderstood. I thought the ones that you're working on, that one of them was not really good. Okay, so the ones that you saw in the video was not up to the mark, and maybe we just kind of threw it in there thinking that there could be some takeaway from that, or see how AWS, could be used for certain components that are in play or the things that you're learning. But I'll take a look at that again. So thank you so much for looking into that. Was the AWS Academy easy to use and intuitive?
It's intuitive. I don't know about that, but definitely with the instructions, it was easy to use, and just the incredible amount of parameters. If you had thrown me in there without hardly any guidance, even with the readings that we had, there's no way I could have figured out exactly how to get it all set up for assignment 3.
Yes.
Intuitive, no, not yet. At least maybe if I spend a bit more time working in the industry, I'll be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. But but easy to use if you know what you're doing. Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Were the instructions provided for the tutorials and assignments clear and to the point? Which I think you answered it partially. So, but still, is there any feedback on that? Anything
no,
that we can improve?
Absolutely clear, easy to follow.
Okay.
I mean, way above board. Just screenshots and instructions. It was excellent.
Okay.
You'd have to try really hard to go wrong.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, the idea was to make it simpler and also to a point that you can re-execute it multiple times, a few times if you have time, so that it becomes like second nature, and also you could find or maybe play with the parameters and stuff. So yeah, but okay, so this is good. I'm glad that it was to the point and clear. How do you plan to practice and take this learning forward, which we can keep it as a food for thought later on, but something to kind of start thinking about, right? Because what we're doing here, you've scratched the surface. We are just, at the tip of the iceberg here, and there's a lot and a lot more, right? And in 8 weeks, you really cannot get everything. And we are just using one cloud platform. There are so many out there. But as far as the conception goes, some of the things that we touched upon, definitely that is, industry standard, enterprise-wide, most of the enterprises using it. So it's nothing that we kind of, doing anything different here. But definitely we just scratch the surface, and there's a lot you can do and take up from here. Because if you don't, certainly the things that you would have learned in this course is going to fade out very quickly. And it will be starting from scratch again. So I don't want you to kind of get to that ever. So try thinking of how you can maybe have an account in AWS, your personal account. Try to see what you can use there freely, because there's some free things, the components that are available. There's a credit that could be available for the first time you join in, maybe. So take advantage of some of this cloud environment, because I tell you, the concept remains the same. Is how these cloud and providers have implemented is different. So you can go to Azure, you'll find equivalent of whatever you're doing in AWS. And same for other platforms as well. It's just the different names that they have, right? Like one Microsoft would say virtual machine, and AWS would say EC2s, right? So they have their own way of terminology for things, but as long as you know this concept very well, you'd be okay. You would still ride through, and it will take time, but you'll be able to do that. Okay, so we'll talk more on that. So where are we in our journey, right? So we went through big data ingestion. We talked about data storage, data lakes and stuff. Last module, we talked about big data processing, and this was about big data analytics, where you are learning about there was actually a huge tutorial that I'm going to show that to you actually on this. That's why I'm going to be doing some screen sharing that I'll show you, not going through over it because it takes a few hours to do that. But big data analytics is where you're using your machine learning, your different analysis, how you do that, visualization, or even what do you call so visualization, machine learning, visualization, or any kind of processing or you would want to kind of do on your data besides just simple data processing. This is where it kind of ends. This is the stage where you would get those insights from your data that you really need. It could be a prediction. It could be just having some insight on what you did through your visualization and charts. that could be, that's what you would do at this point in time, right? So this is where we are in our journey, in the fourth phase and the last phase. So as far as the big data analytics go, let's validate these statements, right? Doing an analysis on big data is called big data analytics. Do you agree? Yes or no?
I suppose yes, so long as that analysis is something more than this is big data. I wouldn't say that's big data analytics, but yes, otherwise I would say any analytics on big data is big data analytics.
Right. Right. So yeah, depending on what type of analysis, right? If you're doing something just statistical analysis, well, yeah, it could be as under the umbrella of big data analytics. But once again, big data analytics is it's a huge umbrella, and depending on what you do is going to be considered as big data analytics. But not everything though. Absolutely. Data science, data analysis, and data analytics all mean the same. Agree? Yes or no?
I'm going to disagree. I think data analysis and data analytics are essentially identical terms, but I think data science covers an umbrella that includes data analysis and analytics, but is not the entirety of it.
Excellent. Excellent there. Absolutely. Very well said. So nothing more to add. When you use cloud computing with big data and run your analysis on cloud, then it is big data analytics.
I would say since you're doing analysis on big data, that's what makes it big data analytics, regardless of whether or not it's done on the cloud.
Yeah, it could be on-prem, right? It could be on premises, on your own servers, local servers. That would still be big data analytics. But yeah, I mean, these days, we are, we've become smart enough to kind of make use of more computing power, more memory, and all that, and not to manage all that hardware. So we're taking advantage of the cloud providers, right? Because they are providing you all this at a fraction of a cost. But yeah, as you said, it's fraction of a cost from that perspective, would be like building your assets and capital perspective. But there's things that you still have to learn, right? Unlearn and learn, right? Because unlearn what you would have been doing on your on-prem servers and stuff, and then learn about the features and products of those cloud provider that you start working with, right? So yes, so there's some amount of that. But in any case, big data analytics could have been or can be done without cloud computing. If you have some real large servers to work with, why not? Absolutely. Okay. All right. So so today I just want to kind of go over a couple of things here. First of all, and this shouldn't take a long time, but first and foremost, to kind of review the Jupyter Notebook, which is just a 5-minute thing because you could have also seen it. But if not, we'll just kind of go over what that is. And secondly, what I like to take you through is very briefly just show you what the AWS SageMaker tutorial is about. There's actually the tutorial that was placed for your last week, week 7. But we had to kind of, because it involved an issue of lab role, we had to pull it out. But I want you to kind of take advantage. And then this is where the machine learning kind of came in. The SageMaker is the machine learning product of AWS. And it builds machine learning in an automatic fashion. And it can build as many models as you want in an automated way, which is cool, pretty cool. And at the same time, you can write PySpark code and create your own own models as well. So we'll talk about all of that. So I'm going to kind of, once again, stop sharing here. And I'm going to take you through my screen and take you through this couple of things that I just talked about. So let me start sharing my screen. No, I don't want this one, basic. Okay, my desktop. That be okay? Do I want my desktop? I'm sorry, I'm just trying the best way to kind of share my screen with you. And mostly my browser. And I don't see it, Firefox. Okay, maybe Firefox. Let me see if this works. Tell me if you are able to see this tab here, the notebook?
Yeah, I'm looking right at the notebook, the browser window.
Okay, excellent. Alrighty. So this is the view of the notebook that we were supposed to, or we were going to attach with the EMR. And as you can see here, this was kind of the initial portions of this notebook was executed, and I had a copy of that. So that's good. I'm able to show you some parts of it which were executed, like, you had to import certain packages and and import Spark sessions. So there were some packages that were imported, which are based on, like, some of them were purely Python related, and a couple of them were really PySpark related and SQL related, because you're building SQL and using SQL within this PySpark code. So it is a very simple, once again, it is a simple code that starts a Spark application, and then what it does, it starts up another line here, the Spark session.builder, it's kind of building a session object, if you will, which is an entry point to underlying Spark functionality to programmatically create PySpark RDD, right? Resilient data frames. And so this one here, it's building that Spark session, if you will, that object on which you can execute your statements, or you can start using your database, you point to the database, or run your command, your SQL command, to query from the database. So after you created the session, it then points to the database created in the lake, in the data lake. So you just say, spark.catalog.set the current database, HCDB. And since this code is already on the cluster, you see the beauty of it is that you don't have to tell the code or write in the code where exactly on which S3 your database is sitting within that cluster. It finds that, it is able to find that HCDB database here directly. And once you got access to the database, and if that's successful, that reads it into the Spark data frame. So you can execute a SQL statement, which is as simple as select star from HC applications, and it will put all that data that it gathers from querying, it puts this into the data frame. The other beautiful thing that we kind of missed out on this is how quickly these commands get executed. And if you would have seen this sitting on the Spark cluster, the speed of which this is kind of, even if you had like millions of records here, I know applications did not have that many records, but still it could have, even if there were tons and tons of records here, the execution is very quick. And that's the beauty of using PySpark kind of a code on sitting on the Spark cluster. So you then use like something like print schema to show you, see the data that is read, and you can read the data, like, it will show you some of the data from the, few records here. For a few rows, it will show you that data within this particular data frame. So all this is kind of captured, and until you really execute the command to get to the data, it will just have it. It's a Spark, like in memory processing that it does. So, and then there were some quiz statements, because there were some statements in there to kind of say, okay, so, what is the data column? What is the data type of column this, or column that? And that was based on what you see on the previous, command screen there. And then, there were certain statements for you to execute, like what's the count, which is, once again, easy. Just a count on the data frame. The first on the data frame is just to see the first record or the row within the data frame. And then the describe is where you get to see the summary of your entire data set, which gives you the mean and your standard deviation and all that. It will kind of give you for each and every column, right? The minimum, the maximum, the mean, and all of that. If it is a numeric field, it will give you all that kind of information. So that's what the describe.show was kind of going to give you. But this is how the simple this notebook was. But as I said, the main thing was kind of attaching it to the cluster so that we could run it and see how easily it runs, and it figures out or finds out where things are within the cluster that it needs to execute and how quickly it gets executed despite the amount of data that you put in here. Okay. So any questions on this notebook?
A couple.
Okay, go ahead.
So when we go up to reading to Spark data frame, right, we have df equals spark.sql.
Yeah.
And in the past, when we work with data frames, there's always been a pandas data frame. And I'm wondering how closely related a Spark data frame and a pandas data frame would be in terms of the commands and operations you can run on it.
Oh, there's going to be a huge difference, especially you would not see that difference, Alex, if the number of records are pretty low. But let's say if you have got millions of records, like if you have to execute, create a data frame from a table that has got, or from a CSV file that has got millions of records versus putting it in RDD, there's going to be a huge difference. So if you really want to see what the execution of a data frame, from pandas data frame to Spark data frame, it would be significant if there's tons of records. If you're going to throw in 100 records, rows to each of these data frames, you may not see that much. You may think, oh, this is really the same. But yes, as I said, like when you have to really work with significant number of records, you really can't work with data frames. I'm telling you, I'll tell you one example from my workplace, and without going into too much of details due to non-disclosure, but we had one of the things that we were reading from a database. We had a connectivity to something very similar to like a directory of employee directory of the entire company. And there's there's like hundreds of thousands of records in there that we are kind of bringing it into our data frame. That particular code, just to bring that in, used to go beyond 24 hours. And I'm not making this up just for the sake of, but it's true that it was taking such a long time because the way they were pulling it into the pandas data frame. And I said, no, you should not be doing this. You cannot use a pandas data frame for such a huge data set. Let's do it the PySpark way. And trust me, when we went to PySpark way, what was happening or going on for hours, it came down to few minutes, literally few minutes. And few minutes meaning not even half an hour or an hour, but within really less than a fraction of time that it took for the entire record to be plugged in there. And they initially, and the speed at which this happened, the developer thought that something did not work. Oh, it's not working. You don't think so because it just came back quickly. I said, just look into the record, run a first, look at the count. You use the first and see if you're able to see the record. And when he saw that, he said, his mouth was literally open. He said, I can't believe this. I said, yeah, that's the power of PySpark and RDDs.
All right, thank you. So
okay.
I think that was my first question. And then my second question, or more an observation, I guess, is we're at set current database, right? We got spark.catalog.set current database to HCDB. And there's seriously like no just trying to navigate through directories to get there. You just, as long as you have the crawler, and you're good to go.
Yes. See, because the other thing that also helps is that you have one AWS service being connected with another AWS within the same region, and it's on the cluster, right? So you bring in your data, from S3, and you crawl it and you create it and make it available as a catalog, which is available across your account for any AWS service to take or make use of it. So this is one of the beautiful things that can happen, and sometimes, but of course you have to take care of, make sure that only you are the person reading it and not and you're going to be not letting others read this kind of data. But yes, as long as it's within the catalog and within your account, yes, you can read it. You can read something that is out there. Sometimes you need the S3 address, but in this case, since the catalog is already available and freely for this particular cluster and this code, to just go and find it, and it finds it easily because that name has been registered with the database within your account.
That's pretty neat. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. It is. I tell you, some of the things are pretty neat, but at the same time, Alex, it makes things a little crazy at times, if you will. And when I say crazy, meaning not crazy, I shouldn't use the word crazy, but scary. Because as I said, if you do not really know why, because you asked a very good question here, why am I seeing HCDB here? Why am I not, pointing out to anything and it just still works here? The reason, yes, within an account, but then it should raise the question, oh, if I'm able to use it, will Dinesh be able to access my database here? Would he have the permission and right to do that? And that's something that you have to work very, it depends on your architecture that you build, right? How is your database and your data protected? How is your S3 is going to be protected, your data lake protected? How is your EMR being protected, right? So there are certain parameters that are available to you, and to make kind of use of that and make use of those parameters so that you can really carve a kind of a shield around it, so that your services within the account can really take advantage and access anything that you want, but anybody from outside should not be able to do the same. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I think I got it.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions?
Not from this, no. It was a surprisingly simple notebook.
Yeah, it was exactly. Wish it would have gone all the way, but anyway, as I said, if you get a chance and if they come back with the lab role, I will certainly be letting you guys know if and when they fix it. So if you still have the connectivity then, and if you get time, just try to run through this quickly and see if that works. Okay. So the next I have is this is the tutorial and I'm going to share this tutorial, so you don't have to take any notes or anything, but this is the tutorial that we had for you making use of something called as SageMaker. So this is an Amazon SageMaker autopilot, and what it does is, in simplest way, it basically takes your data from S3 or your data lake. It picks up the target column. You tell them what target column it is. It runs and builds multiple models, and it finds out which is the best model. So it's a beautiful thing. Yes, in no time that it builds. If you give it like few hours, yes, it is going to give you many more models, and it will try to get you the best model. But even within few minutes, you can still get the best model that you can get. And I'll show that to you exactly in just a few minutes. But so what this tutorial is doing basically, and in a nutshell, we are making use of something called as, before that, this lab role that I was talking about needed one more permission, which is SageMaker full access. So there was the step in here to add these access to the role, to this lab role, and this access is called Amazon SageMaker full access, which I'm kind of showing it here within this particular document here. So if you add these permissions to it, it then would now have the ability to access the AWS SageMaker service. So because it was not able to do that, and when all this happened a couple of weeks back, we had to pull this out. But once you kind of get that, add that permission in, all you need to do is then go to the SageMaker and run that. So basically you come here and what this document is telling you to do is, it is going to let you first ask you to create a domain. Let's call it as a SageMaker domain, right? Once it has created this domain, within this domain, you can pull in your data set. You can create multiple models of your data through your data set, and many more. but this is what it's as it's written here, a domain includes an associated Amazon Elastic file system volume, a list of authorized users, and a variety of secret application policy and Amazon VPC, right? And all that stuff. So it's basically a complete, like it builds like a what do you call, an environment for you, like where you can bring in your data, you can create your machine learning models, you can create predictions or build predictions through that model, you can test the model and all of that. So once you started, it's simple as creating a domain. And once you've kind of gone through that piece, the second part is, as soon as it gives me the ability to do that, going to the next tab here. I always forget my next tab. Okay, oh gosh. It just brings up this thing here. No, this is not the one. Okay. Oh, as every time it shows that black bar on the top, and that's why I'm not able to click on this, but there was a way I was able to do that. It was what you shift tab? No, okay. All right, okay, anyway, we got to this point. So then it lets you start SageMaker Studio. And what the SageMaker Studio does is, after you created the domain, you then, as soon as you come in here, you start with something like, and this code is also given in the tutorial, okay? So you basically, you have a package unzip, make sure that this unzip module or package is available within your Python code. And then what it does, it basically, there's a sample data set that is already available within SageMaker that we are making use of. And I've given a link to what that data set is. So you will know all of that. But I'm just kind of just showing you that, it unzips that zip file, which contains the data. And what it does is, it not only just unzips the file, it puts the data into an S3 bucket automatically. It creates that by itself. So and so as you see here, this data is being read into the pandas data frame. In this case, we're using pandas here. But and then once you see, you can read this file, you can read it, this particular file. And then once you've done that, you can then start to upload this CSV file into something called as the SageMaker session. So you're pulling the data set into that session. And then once that is done, once you kind of come to this point, you then start building a tutorial autopilot, which is called as building the models. So once you pull in the data, you have that in the S3 bucket, or you have that in your session of this particular SageMaker session. Then what it does, it goes through and builds modules. Like this number of modules were built within 15 minutes. Only I gave it only 15 minutes and just said, okay, let it go for only 15 minutes. And then, just see which is the best model. It came back with this best model. And if you look at the model details of this best model, it's gave the weighted ensemble. In this case, everything was on auto. Only thing what we changed is 15 minutes. That do not run more than 15 minutes, right? But we did not give any information of whether it's a classification, whether it's a regression, whether you should use this model or algorithm. No, it did it by itself. Only thing we told that the data set has a y variable called y, and then we want to run it for 15 minutes. Just these two pieces of information, and it was able to come back with all different modules. So this is the module that it came up with. And as you can see, the performance of the best module, once again, think about it, it was done only in 15 minutes. So the value, the accuracy that it may have come up with, of course, it will be a little lower than what you could get if you would run this even more and get your best models. So once you've done that, and then once you've got your best model, and you would deploy it, right? You would deploy that model and say, okay, I will take my best model here and deploy it. And as you can see, my accuracy is 90%, my precision is 55.8%, my recall is 80.6%. Let me take this as the best module, right? Best model, sorry, not module. So now you go back to your code, and then what you do here in this piece of code is you would basically point to that best model. As you can see here, you're pointing to your best model here. This is the name that you used for your best model. And then you would kind of go through and pick the 2000 records from your file and then throw it to this model as a test and see what kind of, does it really come back with good accuracy? What kind of accuracy does it give when I'm throwing in 2000 records from this as a test? And as you can see here, it came back with an accuracy of 1.0 and 1.0 precision, 1.0 recall, and 1.0 F1. So it was still a very, very good model. It built almost a very precise model. So I said, okay, I wanted to kind of keep this going because I wanted to keep this session alive. And I had started this, to kind of grab through this to ensure that I can show it in the evening. I started this a little bit earlier in the afternoon. So I said, okay, let me now move to another, let me build another batch of models. And so we ran another batch of models here. This is called, yeah. So we ran another batch of models. This time I let it run for 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes, yes, I got more than the double of the models here. Now look at this model here, the accuracy and everything. Let's look at the performance here. So the performance, recall is 77.8, precision is 58, the same precision. Accuracy increased by a bit here, or 91.36. That's the kind of accuracy we got, right? And if you look at the, okay, this is the model details. Oh yeah, this is the name of the model here. Where did it go? Looking for the best model name. Just a second. Oh yeah, this is the run 2. Yes, this is the tutorial autopilot run 2 best model. So the best model here, it's showing you what the best model is, and what is it? It's all its performance and everything would be displayed here. So all the model details that you can think of, all the what kind of a metrics, what was the performance, which were the fields that had like the maximum impact, or how it kind of describes the model, which field is more important, and that's kind of shown here through this chart here. So it's just a beautiful way of using SageMaker. I'm going to send this document out to you. If you get a chance, even if you have your own an account on AWS, all you need to do is just go to SageMaker, start working through it, and see if if any role it built by itself. I had to build no particular role for it in any case. I did not have to. Lab role does not even exist outside of AWS Academy. All that I need to do is have my own personal account, come in here, build the SageMaker through that instructions that we have, and then copy paste the code. Only thing I would say is when you're copy pasting the code, it's a Word document. So when you're copying the code from the Word document to the to this particular notebook, sometimes some extra characters, some kind of go in there, and you have to just just delete at the end of each line. It throws in some extra characters. You just have to make sure you clean that up. Or if you want, you can copy these pieces of code into a text file, into a Sublime Text, or whichever, or even a VI that you use, or any text editor. It will not then throw in and bring it all those extra characters. That's the word of caution. But that tutorial is very similar to what you have seen as far as instructions goes for all the other assignments and tutorials. Okay.
Well, I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. Seems really almost cheating to be able to just kind of click and create some machine learning models. I do have a quick question though.
Sure.
I don't know what the data set is. In the introduction, you said it was a public data set pulled from a public bucket.
Yeah, so
But
this
where
one here,
does
let me go to the code and show it to you. So this particular data set is already a sample data set that SageMaker had. So this is something that was already kind of a given. And that, okay, there are some data sets, there are some sample data sets that we can use for, doing this kind of a sample, building of SageMaker and testing SageMaker, how it is.
Okay. And what I was wondering is where the pre-processing occurred. Because if I was doing this, with a smaller data set on my own computer, I'd be worried about stuff like class imbalance, missing data points. And I was wondering how SageMaker did it.
So you get that pre-processing, definitely you will have to do it prior to throwing everything into this model. But if you have at least, if you think that the data set is still good and you don't know about whether it's imbalanced or balanced and all of that, but you just want to still throw it at this particular model and see how it is doing it, whether it did come out with a very good accuracy or not. I would still throw at it as any garbage at it first and see what it comes out with, right? And if you think that, oh, even with the garbage, it does all that pre-processing by itself, a lot of that, then great. If not, there will be some pre-processing that you'll have to do. Like there could be some garbage that you know better than the machine, right? Maybe yes, and in capitals, or yes in lowercase. They could be part of the same column and the different rows, and they actually mean the same. Now, many times this SageMaker, these type of intelligent auto MLs, they can probably figure it out if it was as simple as what I was just giving an example. But sometimes it is not that simple, and it needs to know that a human needs to intervene and do that processing. If that's the case, then you definitely have to do the pre-processing outside, cleanse your data, and then you bring it here.
Okay, so there's a level of pre-processing that's part of the integral, development of the model, but in some cases it's still going to require human intervention.
Right. I mean, there could be some that the machine is intelligently knowing, okay, if Linesh has got this particular column here, which has got YES in caps and YES in lowercase, I'm intelligent enough to know that these both are the same, right? The machine can do that kind of little bit of, I'm wondering, that kind of pre-processing for you, which is going to be as simple, but some it is not. So I would at least just run it once and see what kind of models am I still getting out of it. Is it still able to do, because these auto MLs, I tell you, they really do a great job with it. I've thrown some really garbage kind of data sets, and yet they've really come out very well. But once again, it all depends from data set to data set to data set, right? We don't know how much of garbage there could be in a data set. But and also the fact that garbage in, garbage out, right? So you have to be careful whether it's after all that garbage thrown in, that it is still giving you not garbage kind of accuracy, but real good accuracy.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so, and I've given you links for, links for this sample. There are some sample notebooks that are also available with SageMaker. So that's, you kind of want to, so I've just kind of thrown it out here. Now, these notebooks, they create models by themselves. That's one of the reasons I did not just pick one of the notebooks from here and directly use it, because we wanted to make use of the power of AutoML, right, with little bit of code. So you may see some of the code that we have used is similar to what you would see in this notebook here. But then there are other notebooks as well. So, if you get a chance, I have the links on the slides. So don't worry about that. Okay. So you have the link to this particular page in Amazon. Then I also have a link to the direct marketing, this exactly the same data set, the notebook that I was showing you from the previous page. It is right here. It is also showing you how it is setting up the autopilot job. It is launching it. Everything it is doing through the code, which I like, and sometimes I don't. I said, if there are things that can be done in an automated fashion, but then you want your code, your script to be run once and do all the tasks for you, right? You don't want to have things being done with AutoML, then you bring it in your notebook and work it out. If you want to like have a, like an automated script, you can still do it. So this will kind of show you that. Then there's a link to what the actual data set being used. It's this particular data set, the bank additional bank marketing data set. It's a Portuguese bank data set that is being used for this one here. Okay. So that's what the tutorial is. And this document I will kind of send out to you and the rest of and your classmates, but it has got very, very similar type of format for the steps to be performed so that you could, do exactly what I was just showing it to you step by step. Okay.
Right,
See, all this code is also given to you, what you should copy and paste and all of that. But as I said, when you're copying it from here directly, there will be some garbage characters that could go in there. I did that today and I realized that it does it. And I said, oh, how did I forget that this is coming from the Word? So I had to take it in a text and then from text to this, a notebook file. Okay.
Forewarned. Thank you.
All right, sure. Okay, let's go back to our deck here. And we'll go back. I guess it is this one here. Okay. So the links that I was just showing it to you is right here. And so, you'll find it here in case you need to go to. So the sample notebooks link, the direct marketing notebook sample, and the bank marketing data set link. Okay. And oops. Okay. So the popular cloud platforms, as I was saying, yes, this is Amazon AWS. There are a few market leaders here at the moment, and they're all really playing well within the market. And probably you may know it already, right? Amazon AWS, Google GCP, or Google's GCP cloud computing platform, Azure, IBM Cloud Pak, DigitalOcean. These are very popular cloud platforms where you can practice your skills, and just there's lots and lots of documentation that is available for each of these very popular platforms. They are very mature platforms, and you have to just come up with your idea of what data set or what problem that you want to solve and look for the components. If you know the components that you've learned here, try to apply it. Try to see how you can apply EMR, your PySpark, or maybe SageMaker tutorial. The SageMaker for machine learning models, like building multiple models, right? There's one more actually, but I think they have like it's a paid platform. I don't think they have a free service in any way. Data Robot, but Data Robot has got it has a wonderful machine that kind of just once again, it creates 40, 50, 60 models, or even 100 models at a time. And, not just models of, maybe based on Python or based on this, but it has models of all different kinds thrown together and finding out which is the best model. So it's another great tool, and, Data Robot. So if you can add it here to a list and see how you're going to take your, learning forward. Okay. And of course, the link to the tool that I was just mentioned last time, if you get a chance, if you have not seen that, do go through that video. It kind of gives you an idea of, what the frameworks are still being talked about, what tools and technologies are still being popular and still being talked about in 2022. Okay. So with that, I'm going to leave you with some food for thought of how you're going to take your learning about big data analytics forward. How do you plan to practice the knowledge and skills you have learned during this week? And have you started to research on finding out, data sets, databases, processing technologies, and analytics-based components for practicing your skills? Start thinking about that and start digging in more. This is, as I said, it just gives you a little bit of a knowledge base to kind of take your learning forward, right? Because this is still scratching the surface, but there's a lot more, and there's going to be, very, very interesting things that will come. And yeah, it all depends on, as I said, how you kind of come up with your problem set, your use cases, and then throwing those use cases and making use of the components on cloud. So going to your assignment now, and I'm just kind of, trying to be mindful of the time. I know we are almost just 2 minutes away, but I'll go through this very quickly. But if you think you're pretty good with assignment 4 already, then I don't want to spend too much time, right? But just kind of showing you what, assignment 2, what we did up to Athena, and assignment 3, we included EMR. So we added one more piece to it. We wanted to add the PySpark notebook, but we just kind of went through it, but did not get a chance to add it to EMR. But that could be added as a PySpark code running on EMR. And then we are on assignment 4, where we are taking stuff from streaming data. We are going through that same S3 using Glue, using Athena to do some basic analysis, and then you're using Amazon QuickSight, right, as your visual tool, right, to doing some visualization and building some charts, or for even the dashboard, if you will, for your data, right? So that's what we're learning with how the streaming works, because it's not just about the data, but if the data is coming fast and furious, what would you do, right? So that's assignment 4. Assignment 4 also has got some options, optional, I think, at the end. But I would highly recommend, if you want to just go through it. It won't take much of your time, but it's an additional step where you will run your streaming again after you've gone through your visual analytics. Run your streaming again to see how your charts change based on what get additionally thrown into the bucket. Okay, so this is what your assignment 4 is. Very important. Besides creating all that architecture that I just showed you, you have a quiz. Everything that you do within this assignment needs to be captured in the assignment 4 answer sheet, which is supposed to be submitted and also to be used for the quiz that accompanies your assignment 4. Okay. And this is just a scenario which is also part of the document, so I'm not going to read it much. You can certainly read that, but it's a good scenario to kind of see, okay, why are we doing this assignment, right? What are we really going to achieve from the assignment here? So this scenario actually gives you the purpose, the goal, or what is it needed that you, and why are you doing this assignment for, right? Data, I did mention it. It's like we're using a demo data, so we don't have to really go and but maybe one of the things that if you want to add in later to make it a little more interesting, you can bring in Twitter data. You can bring in Twitter data. That's actually what I wanted to do, but I know that it would have been very time consuming. But it can be done. It's not that it's impossible or difficult. It is. Yes, it's just a little more time consuming because you need to have that connectivity with Twitter, bring the Twitter data, read the Twitter data on a real-time basis, and then see all the different visuals on the dashboard that you may have created. It comes out very beautifully. So if you can go through this successfully, and if you want to really take this forward and see, okay, how would you do it further? There are many other things that you can do for Facebook Messenger messages or for Twitter messages and so on. You can apply the same kind of a logic there as well. Okay. Prerequisites, you already know about it. I need not go through that again. Or the special instructions are just to make sure that you complete the quiz and you submit the assignment for answer sheet in your submission box. The do's and don'ts, the most important do's and don'ts is cleaning up all AWS service. Very, very important. Without which, as you know, that you could get into trouble because there may not be enough credit left for you, even if you want to do it after the course ends, right? So be careful with that. And rubric is very simple. Everything is driven by the quiz. So if you've done this exercise assignment correctly and going through all the steps, recorded all the steps correctly, you're going to do well in your quiz. Absolutely. Okay. Because you would have all the answers in front of you. All right. So with that, I know I went through very quickly, but I'm still open for any questions you may have at this point, Alex. I can go back to the slides again, but as I said, I want to just be mindful of your time, which has gone past, I'm sure it's more than 1 or 2 o'clock now, I think.
That's okay. No, assignment 4, the instructions are pretty clear, very similar to the other 3 previous assignments, but I did, as kind of a closing note, I did have a general question about use of AWS services. I was wondering, so far we've been using very much, text data, essentially table data, and then loading that in. One of the things I would like to use it for later, I think, is image data, because it's a lot harder to process images. And I was wondering how well AWS, I can't imagine it's that much more complicated or difficult than what we've been doing, but I was wondering how robust it is with that. If there's any
it is very good. I mean, any of those platforms that I mentioned, Alex, they're pretty good with anything that you want to throw in. They're very mature platforms. They've been around for many, many years now. And many years meaning even if it is 20 years nowadays in this particular industry, it's a lot, right? Because data science is all kind of new. I mean, not data science is not new, but the way we are handling big data now is all new with newer algorithms, newer technologies, and all of that. So it's pretty robust. Yes, you will definitely find. There's also another thing which is called deep learning that you may want to really learn about, right? Deep learning and how deep learning, using deep learning, you can process images or sound, right? Sound waves or audio messages, right? Or videos. You can all do that. But yes, it is absolutely available and it's very robust.
All right, thank you very much. I'm very excited.
Okay, very good. Any other question?
None right now, no.
Okay, very good. So if not, and before I call it a wrap, Alex, it was nice working with you and having you as all these the webinars here. Did that div, kind of help me because you asked some very good questions, and I hope your classmate would also thank you for being here and asking all the questions on their behalf. And while they're watching it, it's getting clarified. So thank you for doing that, and good luck. And I'm sure our paths would cross again soon. But you will be just doing. You have 2 more courses, right? After this left, Alex, or 1?
I believe the data ethics and the data capstone.
So okay, so 2 courses. That's what I thought. Okay, well, good luck with that. And I'm sure you're going to do well. You've done this course. You've taken it to heart. Everything, all the feedback that you've received, and you've done a great job. So look forward to seeing you on the podium with the degree in hand.
All right, thank you very much, Professor. Looking forward to it.
Okay, nice. Take care. Good night.